Okay, so this page here is pretty self-explanatory. Construction type, low set house, high set house. If it's 2 levels or split levels, you normally with a split level home you're going to have a built-in ceiling between those two. An in-ceiling wall between those two. And so if you imagine you're in the lower section looking towards the upper section, there's a wall in front of you that normally has the bedroom upstairs behind it. It's really important for us to insulate that wall. So if you've got a multi-level home, tick that and let us know any of the other things that might be in the roofs, like ducted aircon, maybe there's no manhole. You might have solar panels on your roof or solar hot water. Sometimes they get in the way of us being able to get access to certain sections. The card of air, that's not very common, but that's a big fan system that's in the roof. They're not bothered by our insulation, so we can certainly insulate your roof even with the cellulose fibre with one of those. Follow the links to our videos. I'll put some information things on that actually with some links to our videos. And so that there's a required field. Tick as many that are relevant to you. This is a Skylight with the old, well, they're not old, they're just the really big square skylights, and in a high ceiling space they've actually got 4, 5, 6 square meters of surface area there on those skylights, and so we want to insulate those skylights to stop the heat coming down through the skylight that's actually trapped up in the roof space. You'll still get the heat from the sun itself, but it actually makes a big difference to insulate the side walls of those boxed ones. Now we can't do it with the solar tube ones, the round ones, but we can do it with the square box type ones to insulate them with polyester bats. Oftentimes you've got roof vents on the roof. If you're concerned about those and you want us to pay special attention to that, let us know, we'll check those for you. And attached garages, we always recommend to insulate attached garages. That's where your garage adjoins your house, and you can walk between the house and the garage, as it were, just an adjoining door. If we don't do the garage at the same time, all of the heat that we trapped and stopped from coming down into your main house actually is extra heat to come down through your garage ceiling, and because it shares a wall with your living room or that doorway, that heat's just comes straight through that wall into your house, and then actually once the heat's in your house, then it's actually trapped underneath the insulation, so it's actually locked inside. So if you don't do the garage, you can actually end up with a worse heat profile than what you had before, and that's where occasionally you meet people that have had their insulation done, not done well, not done professionally, and they've got a bad result and say that, yeah, their house is actually worse now than it was before they insulated. Unattached garages, if you've got an unattached garage, you want it done at the same time, tick the box. If it's not ticked, we normally don't include it in the quote, so unattached garages aren't included in quotes normally. Now, difficult areas, these aren't compulsory to put in, but if you've got solar panels over like an exposed beam roof or a raked roof, then we need to know about that. Sometimes that's hard to tell from the internal photos exactly where the raked section is and that. If you've got difficult truck access, the truck we use is a little bread truck, about 3.3 metres high, but maybe you've got overhanging trees or a windy driveway or a very steep driveway. Let us know, because they're the kinds of things that sometimes don't come up on our searches with the aerial photos. Street parking, so sometimes there's no access for a truck, and so tick that for street parking, and then we need to know that we'll measure the distance to the furthest point on the house for us to bring extra hose. If you've got off-grid power, obviously we need to be aware of that and organise a time that's in the middle of the day to run our machines. The machines use about excuse me. The machines use about excuse me. The machines use about, let me just pause that for a second. Back again. I'm a pretty good insulation tradesperson, but I'm not a very good video editor, so my apologies for that. Anyway, so off-grid power is important to know. Our machines use about 10 amps of power, which is just your normal power supply socket. They use a little bit higher than that, but a normal 10 amp fuse I never have too much trouble with. So there's no need to worry about that. The starting current's slightly higher than that, but it normally doesn't trip to 10 amp fuses. Downlights and exhaust fans, if they're in a raked roof or an exposed beam roof, sometimes customers aren't home when we do the job, and it's really important to let us know, hey, we've got a downlight that's right over in the corner of a room, even just a standard room, or in a bay window, in a drop ceiling, those types of things. So if you've got downlights that are in any of that type area, drop ceilings, bay windows, exhaust fans like that, or static vents, speakers, let us know, tick that box and put it in the comments for us to just let us know, hey, there's some in difficult areas, and explain that to us. We, you know, occasionally customers go out after we get to the job, and so if we know these things beforehand, we can ask and make sure we find them inside the house. And I always recommend to my staff to walk through the house, eyeball every room, eyeball the ceiling, because there's often little things that aren't picked up on these forms, and there's nothing better than to walk through a house and eyeball the ceiling before you start, and make sure that there's no hidden surprises for you when you're up in the roof, because it's very easy to miss a downlight. Sometimes the electricians, because they cut them from the downstairs, they cut them up through, they're underneath the joist above it, and they just jam them in under the joist or jam them in under the batten, and sometimes they're really difficult to find and see, and we definitely don't want to pump over any of those. So that's why this number here is really important. Just click on that there to get the box and tell us exactly how many downlights and exhaust fans you've got. And then our process is that if you tell us there's 10 downlights and exhaust fans, we take 10 shrouds up into the roof, and then that way we know when we've used all the shrouds, we've got them all, and we're definitely not missing anything. So that's the other little safeguard. So we eyeball the ceiling, we take up the right number of shrouds, and then we make sure we use them all in the roof in our prep work before we start. So I hope that answered all your questions there. Of course, after you've answered that, click on the next step and go to the measurement page.